Hey, hey, hey! Welcome back to another Exchange Plates podcast. We are wrapping up the celebration of men this month, and y'all got a heavy hitter in the building with me. I am welcoming Ish to the show.
Thank you.
He said I put on a little bit of pressure for him because he's closing out the series. But ladies and gentlemen, I promise you this is going to be a good one. I have nothing but respect for you.
Appreciate it.
I love the husband that you are. I love the father that you are. I see what you're doing in music out there. And what really prompted me to actually ask you on the show, and you probably don't even remember this, but I'm going to share. You had done something, and it was during the time of everything going on with George Floyd, and you had shared your experience of growing up in the hood, and how you had been impacted by police officers, and you probably don't remember that.
I remember.
You remember? And I was like, wow. Like, I love to hear people speak, and I love to hear people speak with passion, and I think we need more of that. So I was like, once we start doing the podcast, I was like, of course I'm inviting you
All
on.
right.
Come through.
Well,
Come share. This month has been, I don't know how much you've listened to or not listened to, but it's been very eye-opening for me.
Yeah.
Not only me, but people that I know that are fans of the show and that have been listening to really hear, and I'm going to correct myself, not just hear the voice of a man, but really try to understand and have understanding of that. So today we're talking about women's thoughts, but men's truth. Because I feel like, and I know, I don't even want to say I feel like, I know that we're, as women, we're talking to women about y'all.
Right.
We're always, and your wife can probably attest to that.
Listen.
You have daughters, so we're always talking to one another about what you guys think, how you're acting, how you feel. But I think that we're sometimes misinterpreting, not listening, or not necessarily taking into account what men are saying or even showing in their actions. So I wanted to bring you on, and I know you've been married for some time, so I know you got plenty of insight in that area, and you also have daughters, right? So how you guys interact is different. So I'm going to share a little story this week because I had the conviction. So I had a conversation with somebody that I had a previous relationship with, right? And if it wasn't Men's Month and I hadn't been listening how I was listening, I would have attacked that conversation so different. And all he was explaining, like his perspective, his lens of which he sees, I was like, wow, I would have never known that. And not only would I have never known that, having conversations from my perspective, I would have never guessed that was how he felt, right? So I guess I want your take on how that looks or has looked in your life when you felt a certain way about a certain situation, and does that even get articulated to the person that you're communicating to?
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, first, let me start by saying thank you for having me.
Of course.
It's been a long time that I've known you, at least from a distance. High school.
Yeah. I think I might be a little bit older than you.
Yeah, maybe like a year.
You just turned 40, right?
No.
Oh no, you turned what? 40.
I'll be 43 this year.
Oh, you will. So we know we're the same. I graduated. I graduated in 96.
Oh, so we were in the same class.
I was about to say. I always thought you were a class under me.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people did.
Okay. No. Well, I was about to say, I know you're from Irvington High. Yeah.
But thanks for having me.
Of course.
And yes, there is pressure, fellas. She got me anchoring. But it's all good, though. It's all good.
Look, you are closing out, and sometimes what they say, you say the best for last, so you wrapping up the series. That's not at all.
But to your point, I think that as a man, we all right, so even when we talked through text, you mentioned about how there's different communicating styles.
100%.
And men have a tendency to approach conversations with statistics, with facts to the point, and more in general to be solution oriented.
Yeah.
And I know even in my own relationship that women have a tendency to approach the conversation with community. and to try to be understood as opposed to being solved.
Yeah, men are definitely, so it's actually a style, and I don't want to cut you off, but there's a style called rapport that men function in, where it's like they want to get to the resolution. Right. And we want to talk.
Yeah. Like even to use that as an example, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and I just asked her a simple question. It really was just like a simple 5-word answer question, and
Women
it turned into
like
an hour conversation. It was just like, I just wanted to know how you were doing. But I've grown, and am still growing, to understand that we approach things differently. So a lot of the times it is based on being able to listen, being able to put your communication style aside to try to understand what a person is saying and why, how, what their approach is. And that's male and female alike.
So how, I guess in that, because I'm also in that stage of growing, right? And like I was sharing with you, I had the conversation that I had, I was laughing at myself internally, because as I was listening, I was like, probably a year ago, I would have been like, and I was like, but there was something that I really wanted to not only hear, but kind of understand his perspective. And something that I thought was this big for him, right? And I'm like, and I never want to put anybody's feelings and say they aren't valid, right? So I'm learning that process. I think for the listeners too, who are going to listen to this podcast or are currently right now listening to this podcast, how do we get to a place that we are trying to really listen and understand one another rather than speaking to respond?
Right.
And like you said, your friend who's a woman who probably in your head you like it could have been 5 minutes, right? At 30 minutes, what are you doing differently that you would have done in the past? Do you know what I mean? To like get to the hour and not, you know what I mean, cut her off in her thought and sharing.
Well, so my wife is a woman.
We know. And how long you been married?
I've been married 19 years
this
year.
That's what's up. Yep. Clap it up for that. That's a long time. That's amazing. So you were experienced in that area.
So I will say this about being married. You get better. I would never want to approach it in the sense of saying I'm experienced, like I have it figured out, I have the answers, because we're constantly growing and evolving, and she's a new person every day. I'm a new person every day, and we're learning each other anew. Our kids are practically grown. Our youngest daughter, she'll be 18 in 3 weeks, 2 weeks. And, we're at a point now where our kids they don't have time for us. They're doing their own life.
I'm there too.
And, so now we're rediscovering each other. And so to approach it as if I'm an expert on something, I'm still figuring things out. But I am learning. One of my mentors always would tell me whenever he was approached with a question or in dialogue with somebody, when something was said to him that he didn't understand or he wasn't sure on, or even if he just wanted to make sure, he would repeat the question back to them.
I like that.
Give them the opportunity to say, this is what I'm saying, or this is not what I'm saying.
I love that.
That's something that I try to put in practice. Obviously, I don't hit that target all the time, but it's definitely something that helps in communication, not just with women, but with men, with people in general. Because we have a tendency to filter what we hear through who we are, what our experiences are.
That's good.
Everything that makes us, what we hear is how we filter it through those things. So somebody can be literally saying, your hair looks nice, and you'll hear them saying, I need to get my hair done. Or so on and so forth. So it's about being able to listen, take the time. Even in the conversation that I was having with my friend, I had to, all right, you kind of wanted to just make this a quick conversation. But she has, this is her mode of communication. So communicate the way she wants to communicate, and try to live in her space for that moment. And you just it's a process.
It's an exchange.
I checked out a couple times, but it's a process.
Yeah, that's good though. I love what you said, that not only kind of what you're doing in your relationship with your wife, but just in general, because I think that's transferring into, your friendships as well, to kind of be like, okay, this is not normally what I would do, but I'm trying to relearn what I already learned. I so agree with you that often I tell my friend that sometimes we hear different things because of our own traumas, our own things that we deal with. So we gotta be able to separate those things. And I do it to myself. Like, I'm like, why do I feel this way? And I know that's a little weird for some people, but that's my self-talk that I have with myself. A lot of times I'm like, hey, why do I feel like this? Like, what really is the issue? Am I mad at this?
Yeah.
And I'm just learning and continue to learn that even for me, even getting angry, right? There's something I feel before that, right? So like, why am I not addressing that? Like, how did I get to anger? Like, what was my first? Was I, did I feel disrespected? Did I feel unappreciative? Like, in that moment, like, what was I feeling that got me to anger? But I think, and that's what, again, the exchange place is really learning yourself and doing the self-work so we can have those better exchanges with, whether it's wives or business partners or any relationships. What I'd love to know, though, so in sharing, since you've been married so long, you have, I'm sure, long relationships outside of that as well. Are you fearful in sharing those areas, or has that been like a growing place for you of like being able to share?
That is a place that I am recently growing in. Okay. You mentioned earlier about, or a few seconds ago, about finding yourself having those personal conversations. Why am I this way? Why that's a space that I want to say in the last 3 or 4 years that I've grown into, where I'm like, Dad, well, why am I responding this way? Why, and realizing that all of that stuff has a source, right?
It does. It really does. And people don't think, people are like, this is how I am. I'm like, but why are you like that? What triggers you? And if you follow it back and you really take the time to look back, you can go back and be like, this is you can pinpoint that place. But you have to be, and I'm telling the listeners, they really have to, you got to be ready to really go in and deal with you, right? And that's a whole nother work, because that has nothing to do with anybody else. Like,
it's all you.
Being able to look yourself in the mirror. So in that growth of like the fearful place to share, or where do you think that stems from?
I mean, I'll speak for me. I'm not gonna speak for any other guy, but for myself, it's about insecurities. It's about protecting yourself. It's about, I shared with a friend the other day. I said, there's a truth to the saying that the things that are the hardest to share, the easiest to share with strangers, are the hardest to share with those who you know. And I shared with him that is, I find that to be a factual statement in my life. And the reason why, what I realize about me is, the reason why is because to a stranger, there's no accountability. I don't, if I share with you some deep truth about myself and you judge me, it doesn't matter, because when we're finished talking, you go your way, I go my way. You can
go back to your home.
But with a person that I'm personable with, in relationship with someone that I have accountability to, I run the risk of changing how they look at me by being honest and being open. And I think that, in a sense, that's something that we all deal with, why we don't share our 100% selves, why we're reluctant. And even when we do find ourselves feeling safe to share, we give it in increments, because we're worried about how they're going to handle it, if they can handle it. Does this change the way you look at me? Do you love me different? Do you view me different? Are you receiving me different? I think that, I know for me, that has been a stain for me. I'm just now getting to a place now where I'm accepting me enough to say that if you really love me, you'll accept that. And we'll figure it out together. Or whatever the case, whatever the situation
whatever the
may
situation
be,
is. So I agree with you. I think we all go through that. I definitely don't think that's for men less than women. I think we all get to a place that we're, trying to get comfortable with, as they say, comfortable in your skin, right? And you want to get comfortable there. I know for me, it took me a long time to get there, right? I definitely had what you were talking about. I could totally relate. I definitely had a place that I couldn't see myself. So it's hard if you can't really see you to really identify if people will accept you, right? Because it's like, I can't really, who am I, right? And that was one of the questions I used to ask myself in the mirror for years, like, who are you? Like, really, really, who are you? And that was coupled with traumas and, and all different things that I just, I had to dig through. I had to get through. I definitely think it's acceptance. I feel like for my life, I always say I was a chameleon in parts of my life that I gave people what I thought they could handle, or
Right.
the pieces of me that I thought that they could handle.
Right.
And I always felt like I had to be a certain person for different people, if that
Absolutely.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And to the extent of, I was just like, I don't know if they could take, like, for one person, I always say this even now, because as people see me, some people can't even accept what I'm doing right now, right?
Yeah.
Because for them, at one point, that was the singer Deb, or are you the person that does the apparel line, or are you? And I'm like, I'm all that,
Right.
And not to say it like that, but I am all
Yeah.
that, right? I have layers, and I used to hide them,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
used to really hide them. So I know I think on the male side, I know I have boys,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I believe that men, again, we kind of condition men growing up as, men don't cry,
Mm-hmm.
be strong, it don't hurt like that. And I think that's why as we grow up, even in relationships with men, you don't feel like they feel. And I'm so guilty of that. I'm so guilty of that. I'm like, he don't care. He don't care. And it's not that. It's just that, I don't think it's as free for men to share, or accept it. I don't want to say it's free, but they have to get there, and they have to relearn that.
Yeah, we are taught to be strong.
Yeah.
We're
But
taught
what
to
is
be
strong?
And
What does that mean?
And that is a good question, because that's something that I find myself toggling with,
Okay.
right? Because the identity is, for men, as we're taught, strong means protector. Strong means provide. Strong means stern. Strong means stone face. Strong means firm hand. Those are the things that we are, whether it's verbalized to us or inadvertently taught to us. These are the things that we identify as strong. Whether it's when you're playing on the playground, with other fellas, watching how the women relate to the strong one. Whether it's how your mom responds to your dad, or lack of a dad, how she responds to other men.
Wow.
All of these things are teachers of us. It's not just verbal. That's probably the minute.
You're also watching.
Means of communication. And so you grow up with these things, and realizing that as you get older, that you still have human emotions. You still can sit on the couch and watch this Lifetime movie and your eyes may water too, because you're a human being. You know what I mean? And so, but in our society, we're not often given this space to be human. And if we do present some sort or sense of us being human, it's received as weak. It's responded to as weak by men and women alike often. And the irony of that is that we are always asked by women to be open and be transparent and be vulnerable. And it's like, it's kind of like, all right, well, which one do
you want?
Because if I give one, I lose the other, and so.
When you can have both. And I learned that. So I grew up more of a tomboy. I was a tomboy most of my life. So I was when the boys were younger, I was, the disciplinarian. I was and I still am to a certain extent. But I realized with both of my sons at a certain age, when I was just like, are you good? Like, they stopped talking more. You know what I mean? So I was like, is everything okay? But I realized I was wiring them that way. Like, you're okay. You fall or you hurt yourself. You don't have no blood. You're fine.
Right.
Like, it doesn't hurt.
Right.
And it's like, nah. And then they would have grown up. Thank God, I got to where I am, because that's impacted how I even parent them. Right. But they would have gotten to a place, and now whenever their first relationship and everything is, now they have a girl like, tell me how you feel. And it's like, well, I don't even know how I feel in that case, because I've been told so long not to feel, right? And I think that thing, it burdens us probably on both ends, if I'm honest, on the strong woman, Black, independent woman, that strength. I know I felt like that a lot of my life. I'm single parent. It's just like, carry the weight, and just don't show how you feel. And it's like, no, I'm over here hurting. I'm having a tough time. And I know I can't even imagine what it feels like to be a black male, right? So I'm raising two of them, but I don't know what that feels like. You know what I mean? And I can't even imagine on top of just the male across the board, right? But on top of that, the black male who is like just on guard for everything. Where is that safe place? You know what I mean?
That's a mouthful, because and it's funny enough, I try to foster that within my circle. I think for most men, we don't have like settings. Okay. Like girlfriends could go get a bottle of wine and make it a girls' night and go. Men don't typically have those spaces, again, because even within our circles together, it's still received as weak.
Really?
To be vulnerable often.
Wow.
But like I was saying, because of the work that I've been doing with myself in recent years, I've just kind of gotten to a place where, like you said about being a chameleon, right? Almost having to be bipolar in some instances, because you want to fit. You want to fit. You don't want to rock the boat in different spaces. And you get to a place where it's kind of like, okay, if I don't be who I am, if I don't explore who I am, if I'm not vulnerable with who I am, I'm going to go crazy.
Yeah.
I'm going to lose my mind. And so I've gotten to a place now where it's just like, this is who I am. And the people who are supposed to be in my life will accept me as who I am.
Yeah.
And as I work through the things that need work.
Yeah.
And so
becoming.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I try to foster that with male friends that I have. Presenting spaces for them to be vulnerable.
Gotcha.
Presenting spaces for them to talk about the things.
This is a space.
Yeah, and the exchange place is the space.
It's a space.
I've been watching a lot of the video that you've been putting out, and I'm like, yo, these dudes are really talking. Like,
I love it.
Like it's cool, and to have those spaces for men to feel vulnerable and be able to speak their truth and be honest about how they feel and view things without feeling attacked, without feeling, hyper masculine or feeling super weak or whatever the case is, those extremes. But to be able to say, this is how I feel. Let's sort through these things. Let's talk through these things. I need your perspective. In order to be better, in order to have a better view of what it is.
Men need men.
Yeah.
And I agree with you with what you said. I was thinking about, like, I don't know that men kind of do that with one another.
It's rare.
For whatever reason. And we really do, as women, we do have that space. And I think it's so important. I after doing the men's month, I think I'm pretty much decided to do a women's month too, because I think there's so much miscommunication between each other. And I just think it would heal a place that really would, take relationships, and I'm not just talking about romantic relationships. I just think communications through opposite sex, whether it's parenting, I think it overall would just blow people's mind if we could get back to a space that we understood one another. Yeah. And I really think that both sides want to know, regardless of what I think is being pumped to us on social media and just in culture right now of like, on one of the last shows, one of the young men said that, music is teaching us how to move, right? So you have because I had 3 young men who, I would say who none of them had relationships, but weren't in current relationships that they at least, said on the show. But they were saying like, okay, well, you have the man over here trying to make a stable life for themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But it's kind of get mine. And then you have this independent woman or young lady on this side trying to get everything, but not really feeling like they need one another, right? And not that you want, you have young girls. I have younger young men, and not that you want them in relationships right away. However, you want that. You want that, but I don't even think they're looking at that. They're not. They're not. And if we're having a hard time, because we grew up in a whole different era where we actually sit down and have conversations, to this texting method, to this, whether it's IG or DMs or whatever they're doing, like I worry about them. Right. I worry about what it's going to look like when 20 years from now. You know what I'm saying? I'm older, and I want to bridge the gap at the end of the day. And I think there's a place and space and I want to make more and do more with men. So if you ever want to hook up and do something,
Okay.
I have a team of guys that are just like, yo, this is dope. Like, let's do more of this. And to get you guys in the room, I would love to have just men in the room and let y'all.
I would love to do something like that because I feel like, and again, back to to your original statement about men and men having a space and the wherewithal to do the work, is I like to say.
Yeah.
Men tend to approach relationships with other men in a hierarchy sense, right?
What do you mean?
So from, again, like I go back to like the playground days,
Okay.
right? From early on, men are taught there's an alpha.
Okay.
And everything falls beneath that, So
Okay.
when we approach situations, we're always searching when we're dealing with other men.
Okay.
All right, who's an alpha? Who's not an alpha? These things are going to determine how I relate to other men. This is how men, I don't even know if we even always recognize it or understand it, but this is kind of how we approach how we deal with one another.
Okay.
Are you a stand-up guy? Do are you going to be afraid if I'm looking you in your face? Those type of things. These things play a part in how we relate to each other. Jay-Z was doing an interview where he was talking about how you can walk down the street with another, in the direction of another man and be almost not wanting to look him in the eye, because if you look him in his eyes, it's almost like you're challenging him. Right? Challenging his manhood, challenging, his ability to be a man or whatever. And it's like, nah, I'm looking at you because I see you. And it doesn't make you any less of a man because I look at you. And it doesn't make you any less of a man because you feel vulnerable. Yeah. And what it is that you're approaching things from a standpoint of trying to hide those vulnerabilities, so you overcompensate by the hypermasculinity. You overcompensate by the fact that I'm an alpha, or I'm this. And so we approach relationship with one another that way. That tends to change once we know each other. But when we come together,
but if you just ran,
and you'll see it. The next time you see a room full of men, I'm telling you, the next time you see a room full of men, watch how they interact, how they greet each other. It'll be subtle things. It won't be like hard, eyes and stares or whatever. But the conversation and the way that they approach, and even watch their eyes, what they look at, the things that they focus on, the watch, the shoes. Those different things, because those things communicate how you feel about you, what your status may be in society.
Wow.
And then those things determine to me how I relate to you, and how I talk to you, and how I communicate to you.
That's so good.
So men tend to approach things that way. And it makes for, again, that hierarchy thing, because now we have to stop. You find this even in the household. We have to establish our roles in the spaces that we're in. Where women do that too, but not to a degree. Women, again, are more communal. Women are more oriented in community.
Yeah.
So y'all find yourselves in spaces, smaller groups, spaces where you all can contribute and receive. And if there's a person that doesn't fit that person's just not involved. That's it.
I got you.
So at least that's my observation.
Yeah, no. When you say that's very true. That's a good observation. I'm just thinking from a woman's perspective. I think something similar happened. So what I will say normally, and I'm going to take your what you share into account next time I'm in the room. I'm probably in the barbershop and watch how men interact. But I think what's different with men rather than women that I've experienced, unless you're a certain type of woman in a certain type of place, I think there's more cattiness amongst women. If women walk in a room, and I'm not like that, because if a girl walks in a room and she's beautiful or has on a job, you're like, girl, where you get that dress from? You wearing that dress? But it's a lot of competition, I think, between women. Men seem, at least from my naked eye now, because now I'm going to go and observe, seem more like friendly. And I'm going to use the barbershop. If a new guy comes in the barbershop, it is a like a who are you initially when a guy walks in, but it's a different type of exchange that they have. That's just a respect overall. They're not disrespectful. On a woman's side, it doesn't always. I've observed that as well. It doesn't always look like that, depending on what the energy is, or I think also it just speaks to people's insecurities. Like I'm probably at some point been that woman, but I've definitely walked in a space where it's just like, hey, everybody, and everybody just like. So I think it's different in that sense, but I love what you said, and now I'm listening to y'all pay attention to the men, because I want to know, I want to understand.
It's something key that you said too, because there is a mutual respect that's given.
Yeah,
right?
it is
on the onset.
Okay.
And again, that again has to deal with that sizing up, right?
So when you size, like the size up, is that size up of like what people think you have visually? Like,
I think it's all of those things.
Okay.
From your communication, like using the barbershop is a prime example.
A prime example.
You go into a barbershop, especially if you're new to a barbershop,
Yeah.
you're being sized up from the moment you walk in. They may what's up you, they may be very cordial, very respectful, but they're watching you. How you move, how you sit in the chair, what your response is. If somebody tells a joke, are you smiling? Because if you smiling, you don't notice people, that might make you weak. That might make you vulnerable. Are you stone-faced? All of these things are things that men inadvertently do. And we judge who you are and how we react. And that's not just with men, that's with women as well.
Yeah.
We judge based off of those things, A man, if you notice, like a man, if he's trying to getting good with you, I'll say it that way, or whatever. He'll say certain things. It's all to see how you respond, because how you respond is going to determine to him, all right, this is this type of person, so I got to move this type of way with this type of person. I can be dominant with this person, or this person might not be that. All right, so, I said a joke, and she didn't really smile at the joke, so, all right, so I crossed that one off. Yeah, so, those type of things. And so that's how we navigate in our world, and I don't think often, because we are, again, solvers, we're oriented to solutions. That's how we approach everything. We try to gather as much information as we can, gather as much facts, come up with a solution, come up with some data, and we move in that vein. And that's how we do.
Okay. That's good to know. So I'm listening, because I'm thinking, I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I grew up as a very much a tomboy, but I was thinking, like, I definitely have the stone face. I hope I don't have it no more. But I used to have this, like, you don't want none.
In school, you did.
Yeah, it was a protective thing.
I get it.
But I grew up around boys. Like, I would fight. Like, I was a you know what I mean? And I had that kind of don't come over here.
Yeah,
so people were not welcoming to talk. Now
I was the same way.
Yeah.
I was the same way.
Yeah.
I remember my junior year in high school, and I was at Essex Catholics before I came to Irvington.
Okay.
And there was a kid named Rudy came up to me one day. Like we had already became friends. Okay, so we had cool or whatever, and we were at lunch one day and we were talking. He's like, man, for the first couple of months, I wouldn't say nothing to you, bro. I'm like, why? He's like, because your face is always scrunched up or whatever. And I'm like, for a long time, I would always say like, well, that's just my face. But, in latter years, I realized, no, that was a defense mechanism.
That's
100%. That's all it was. It was a defense mechanism. And I didn't want to find myself in a position where if I presented myself friendly, then people were taking advantage of me.
Absolutely.
Or intruding in my space, because people have a tendency to do those things. And so as a man, I'm the oldest of 4 boys.
Got you.
I am the man in the house, more or less, because my father wasn't there.
Got
so
you.
I always had to present myself as the alpha, and there's times when I don't feel the alpha. There's times when I'm afraid. There's times when I don't want no problems. I don't want no smoke.
I don't feel like
but
it right now. Not today.
Yeah, right. But you have to walk through life with the face.
Yeah. I had the face. Yeah. I had the face for so long that I remember people used to literally say, why you never smile? Yeah. And I used to be like, I'm not even noticing that smiling. I wasn't. I'm kind of smiling, but to me, it was a defense mechanism. It was definitely something to tell people, like, look, don't come over here. I don't want to be bothered. Right. Back up.
When I want to be bothered, I'll
let you know.
Yeah,
I'll let you know. So do you think, let's circle back a little bit about you talking about you navigating through sharing your feelings. So as you've been going through this process, do you think it's helped your relationships that you have? I know you talked about your friend that you spent. We're going to clap you up for your hour spent where it should have been 5 minutes. We're going to clap you up for that. But like, have you seen it? I often feel like as we do work in ourselves, it transfers across the board. So not only in relationships of, maybe parenting, even with your wife, or even business ships, right? Sure. So has that having or finding, I call it finding my voice. I feel like I finally found my voice where I'm okay with saying how I feel. I'm okay with that I feel a certain way, and people might not understand that, how I feel, but it's valid. It doesn't make it less valid because I feel a certain way. So like on your journey, because you said 3-4 years that you've been kind of navigating that place, like, have you seen changes in relationships and changes in that are good ones where you feel like this is the place and the way I'm supposed to be going?
Yeah. I think the major change that I've seen is people's willingness to be more vulnerable with me.
Yes.
I think that that's probably the timestamp, I would say, like a timestamp, because I can kind of like relegate to specific times where people just started being a little bit more open with me, a little bit more willing to be honest and share. But I know for a fact that has more to do with me being able to be that with myself and then with them, and then creating a space where like, yo, you can be, you can trust this because you know I'm laying myself out. You know, also in how I see the people that I am in relationship with, where there was a time as of recent where I would go off, I would fly off the deep end when something would happen, something would go bad. I've had a recent experience where something just went completely awry, and it was just those people's fault. Period. It's your fault because I'm a good guy and I try to do right by everybody, and it's your fault, and all of those things. But going on this journey has really made me step back from a place of like, I don't even care what was your fault. What part did I play?
Yeah.
What was the things that I did?
That's the place.
Yeah,
That's the place.
And because I don't want this to be something that's repetitive in any other space that I find myself in. And not only that, my goal in life is to grow, is to do better, is to be successful at the things that I put my hands to. And if I'm finding myself having the same interactions, the same situations, then there is a part in that I'm playing.
Yeah, so that was a common denominator.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
So rather than letting this or having this become something that continues to happen in the cycle that's happening, let's deal with me. Let's figure me out. And so I'm finding in those moments that I am growing more grace for other people.
Love it.
Which is a huge thing. Like,
that's a word of wisdom right there.
There's time, but like I said before, there was times where it's like, nah, you the culprit, you gotta go. Period. And now it's just like, you know what? I get it.
I get it.
Because here's my part, and the part that I played, I wasn't being intentional about being this type of person.
Yeah.
There's things that has happened in my past. There's ways that I've grown up. There's ways that I've been taught. All of those things have come together to make me react the way I reacted, to respond the way that I respond, to take the things that I took when I shouldn't have taken them, and so on and so forth. Those things all made me that person. So because I'm that person doesn't make me that person. You understand what I'm saying?
I totally get it.
Yeah, so
totally
it's like, so give me, maybe you won't give me grace. Maybe you won't give me, that's okay. I'm doing my work.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna while I'm doing my work, I'm also gonna understand that you need grace too, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah.
You have insecurities too, whether you realize it or not. You have issues and things that you need to deal with, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah.
And because I know that,
grace.
I'll give you grace.
Yeah.
And
grace is a great place.
Yeah, it is.
It's a great place. It's a great place to get to. My friends will always be like, you always trying to understand. But I love it. You know why? Because I want to be understood.
Exactly.
And in order to want to be understood, I have to try to understand other people. So I always want that space, whether I agree or disagree. I love having those hard and tough conversations with people because it gives me a different perspective that I didn't have before. Right. And I'm like, I might not understand because I didn't grow up the way that you grew up. I don't have, I come from this family. You come from that family. Some things that you're doing was very normal maybe in your household or how you normally deal with people. And I'm like, I don't function like that. So I don't understand it. But I want to know if we can figure out a place to go. Now, everybody can't go, but I'm just going to be real. Yeah. Everybody's not meant to go, but there is a place for grace. Yeah. And I love that you said that. That's definite. So I know we're about to wrap up. I want you to leave. First of all, I want you to share anything that you have upcoming that you want people to tap into. I know you do music. I think you got another album. I don't want to tell too much, so I'm gonna let you flow with what you have coming up, and then I want you to give the good people some words of wisdom. I think for the men more so of, I guess, dealing with one another, because you talked about that a lot, and maybe I get a lady some wisdom on this side.
Well, I hope I gave some sound advice.
You dropped some gems in here.
Okay,
You did.
Great, awesome.
You did.
But as far as what I got going on, right now I'm working on my second solo studio project. I worked on several, but this is yes. Yeah, I'm hoping that's exactly what we hear when this project comes out. You know,
we speaking it into existence. Come on now. Yes.
You know? But the project is titled 40,
okay.
And it has everything to do with what we're talking about. This coming of age situation. It's coming to oneself, which is why it was titled 40. It's a project that kind of came to mind when I turned 40.
Okay.
You know, being in that space of like
that space is a different space.
It's a
weird space when you turn 40.
Yeah, it's weird, but
not a bad.
If you can navigate it, it is a revealing place.
It is.
It's a revealing place, and it's that makes it good.
Okay.
That makes it good.
Yeah.
And so that's what this project is, mostly about. We're having fun on it as well, but it's mostly about, this is me.
Yeah.
This is who I am, with all my flaws, all my colors, everything that makes me me. This is me.
Love it.
Love it. That's it.
So when is it dropping? When can and where can people get it?
So the project, when it drops, it will be available on all streaming outlets, Apple Music, Spotify, whatever you fancy, you'll be able to find it there. As with all any music that I've released or whatever. I haven't set an exact release date, but we are looking to do this in the 3rd to 4th quarter.
Okay. So give me your Instagram so they know where to find you, so they can look out for the project.
Yep. So my Instagram and my Twitter is @transparent-ish, transparent ISH. And you can also follow me on Facebook. My name Ishmael Ish Rouse. Yeah. And just keep in contact with me. That's where I'm at.
Check them out, y'all.
Yeah, I put some stuff up every now and again, but we're gonna be putting out some music real soon as we lead up to the project and some music videos as well.
Yeah.
So that's what we're working on.
Awesome.
If I did have some words to leave to the fellas, because I don't want to give the impression that we are just out here being competitive. That's definitely not the impression I want to leave. But what I will say is find you a safe space amongst other men where you can learn, where you can be vulnerable, where you can be transparent. The work that I have done, the work that I am doing, let me say that, within myself has been most productive in the spaces of other men.
Love it.
It's been most productive. I've been able to find men, predominantly older men, that I can be vulnerable with, that I can be honest and open with, that I don't have to fear viewing me different, treating me different, looking at me different, by being completely open and honest and allowing them to use their life experiences to give me advice, to help me be better. And if you have a woman in your life that loves you, that's serious about you, she's a safe space as well. My wife has been that for me, continues to be that for me. So I think that for us, as the men we are supposed to be, as the fathers, husbands, and just the backbones, I would love for us to be the backbones and the support of our communities. I should say it that way.
Yeah.
That starts with that vulnerability. It starts with finding a safe space to look at yourself and do the work for yourself. And I think when we can get to that space, when we get to that place, we can be our whole selves. We can be better for our communities. We can stand up and do what we need to do for our our wives, I should say, our children, for just our community at large.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. I'm gonna reiterate something that you said, and I think that women need to give to men more is grace. I think there's a huge misunderstanding, and there's a huge narrative being pushed on women as a whole, but I think it's also impacting younger women even more, that they have no good men, you know what I'm saying, thoughts, and they are not even at an age to even date.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But they're getting fed that so early that women have lost hope, because I talk to a lot of women, that there are good men, and I know that they are. I refuse to lose hope that there are good men.
Yeah.
You
I know
what
a lot of
mean?
them.
I was about to say, I know a lot of good men too, but I know that especially single women or younger women, they've lost hope in that. And I would say that, nobody's going to come perfect, because we're not perfect people to begin with, but that they would honestly give people grace and to discern who deserves grace.
There you go.
Right?
And that's what I wanted to just add on that.
Yeah.
Because that narrative is not pulled out the air.
Yeah.
Right? There's facts to that narrative.
Yeah, no.
But we also have to take the responsibility of who we give space to, who we
choose.
give, because we are a sum total of our choices.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
good.
What you find yourself, the relationships you find yourself in, those people that you find yourself matching with, you chose them.
Yeah.
So you have to be more careful about the things you choose and who you choose to be around and who you entertain and all of those different things.
Yeah.
And, so it's important.
It's important. It's important. I love that. And I thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, I know, to come and grace this space. And I pray as we do more things, because I definitely want to do some things with men and women. I would love for you to be one of those people if you are able to.
Definitely.
So thank you for coming.
I appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah. So we'll talk to you next week.
Next week.